Welcome, everybody. It's 1:35. I think we can get started. We're really glad that you're here. And I'm going to turn it over to get us started to Kara Unger, our board chair.
Thanks, Eric. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Really great turnout. We appreciate you here today. Just a few updates before we get started. Reminder, of course, election day is coming up. We do have some new endorsements on our website. One endorsing Renee Gonzalez for the mayoral candidate, and then also adding Harrison Cass to District 3 for the RPC endorsements. So hope that you guys can all visit our website and see who RPC has endorsed, particularly in the districts. And please, as always, reach out if you have any questions or comments to Eric or myself or any RPC board member. Eric, do we have anything else to go over before I turn it over to Tom and Jose?
I think not. They had Jose may not be in the room yet because he had I'd given him the wrong link to join us.
Yeah, Eric, I just connected with him too. He's trying to get in. So he's working on it. Sorry.
No, it's fine. There he is. He's here. Sorry, we had to switch Zoom links, and I think I didn't catch everybody up. So yeah, Jose is joining us right now. Tom, do you want to kick us off, and then Jose can jump in as you get going?
Sure. As the homelessness chair for RPC, I've been asked to talk about homelessness. Just very briefly, to get us up to speed, we had the United States Supreme Court weighed in on homelessness in case you missed it in the City of Grants Pass case. The City of Grants Pass had a statute back then that provided for the possibility of 30 days in jail if you violated an anti-camping statute. The evidence showed that wasn't really being enforced very much, but nonetheless, the interests weighed in, and the Supreme Court found that those kinds of statutes could be enforceable. Now, in Oregon, we have HB 3115, which says that any kinds of such ordinances nonetheless have to have standards that are objectively reasonable. So all you attorneys out there, go at it. And also, we've had HB 4002, with the Measure 110 changes. We have the City of Portland's camping ordinance, which provides for a $100 fine. I don't think a lot of fines have gone out. I remember reading about one so far. And most recently, fans of homelessness get to read about the current dispute between the city and the county over the IGA, the Intergovernmental Agreement, and whether those two entities are going to continue to work together or not. And that's a stay tuned situation right there. So that in 2 minutes or less describes what's going on with homelessness.
Thanks, Tom. We originally envisioned this as a joint meeting of our two committees, the Homelessness Committee and our Public Safety Committee, because there's so much going on in the public space around open drug use, homelessness, and a variety of new ordinances and approaches to addressing those issues. So we're thrilled that we could kind of put this together with our friends at the police department. Jose, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Eric, can I jump in real quick? I forgot to say the thing I wanted to say the most. I really apologize. A couple of years ago, we had a symposium on homelessness, and Bob Day spoke at the symposium, and he was amazing. And he talked about this thing called a sobering center and how we needed a sobering center. And I thought, oh, what a concept. That sounds very interesting. And I know Chief Day has been talking about that recently too. And we're an advocate for that. So thank you.
Fantastic. Jose, take it away as our committee chair for public safety.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I am Jose Cienfuegos. I am too a lawyer. There's a lot of us out there. I head up the Public Safety Committee. I've had the pleasure of being involved with Revitalize Portland Coalition and been the chair of the Public Safety Committee now for a little bit of time. And I used to be a deputy district attorney in Multnomah County. I was actually a baby DA with Nathan Vasquez. He stayed at the office and I didn't have the guts and I got out into private practice. But we have been blessed to have a great working relationship at Revitalize Portland Coalition with Portland Public Police or the Portland Police and Nathan Vasquez, who now is our elected district attorney. We endorsed him. We've had the opportunity to hear from Bob Day before at our March Forum on Public Safety, which was just a great event. We plan on having another one soon. I think it's an excellent opportunity for us all to hear about what's going on in our city regarding public safety and what some of our elected officials are doing about it. We are in a critical time right now, as all of us know. We have a big change in government coming. We still have a lot of the same issues that plague us here in Portland regarding homelessness, crime, and hopefully we're going to be able to see a change here with, I think, which is a great relationship that Bob Day has with Nathan and his office starting in January. So we're excited to hear about this update. We really appreciate everybody getting involved. We're going to be on the public safety side at RPC, have, like I said, another forum possibly coming up. We meet regularly every month. I invite all of you, please, to come to our meetings. We have guest speakers, usually of our meeting that talk about public safety, and that ranges anything from graffiti all the way to some of the major crimes that happen. But right now, I'm going to kick it off and send it to, we are sharing a screen. Don't know what that, oh, there it is. All right.
Just sharing contact info for meetings.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Thank you. I was like, oh, did people lose me? So no, I want to kick it off by introducing Robert King. He's the chief of staff for Bob Day. I'll let him introduce himself and introduce the other people that he has brought along with him. Really appreciate you coming, Robert. So thank you.
Jose, it's a pleasure. Eric, thanks for having me. Everybody, I've been before, but just for those who don't know, my name is Robert King. I'm the chief of staff for Chief Day here at Portland Police Bureau. I retired from the Police Bureau in 2018 as commander of North Precinct. Worked for the mayor for 2.5 years after that as his advisor on public safety, and then was retired for several years in Chief Day when he re-entered service to the city, and the Police Bureau asked me to come back and be his chief of staff. He and I got hired together. We worked together for many years. I have tremendous respect, appreciation, and admiration for the chief and for his leadership. And so grateful that he's back, and I'm grateful to be on the team. Chief Dobson is also joined, and I just wanted to provide some kind of high-level comments about the past, a little bit about the past, present, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we, obviously the concern we all have about what's sort of coming. Everybody on this call knows and understands that there was a very dramatic impact to our city in 2020. And we have, in many respects, we have come through that crisis. We are obviously still seeing signs of it. But I recognize that everybody has concerns about what that's going to mean for this next election process coming just in a very short period of time. I learned a tremendous amount and have, I believe, in my experience, a tremendous team here in Portland Police Bureau. Many of you are familiar with the rapid response team and the work that they did over the course of the summer. I'll just start by saying we have been committed to both planning and preparation and learning in anticipation of this election. Now, good news is, first and foremost, today we do not have intelligence that tells us that something really dramatic could be brewing or is on the horizon. But having said that, I think everybody on the call also recognizes there's a level of unpredictability to elections, and we certainly have had our share of demonstrations and protests and unrest here in Portland. So our relationships are better and stronger today than they've ever been. The chief has made His goal to increase communication, collaboration, cooperation with city, county, state, and federal folks. I'll just tell you, mutual aid is one thing that he's strengthened. Gresham, Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, the Port of Portland have all signed mutual aid agreements with the city, so we have additional resources as needed. There's Washington County and Clackamas County have also been, chiefs been meeting with them, and they're very happy to find ways to be supportive. It may not mean that they come down in a crowd control capacity downtown, but we're going to need help and support throughout the city, and they're available to do that. So the chief can talk about RRT and some of the other plans, but I've been really grateful to see the team itself reconstituted. I also, as many of you know, that the city council of the city of Portland has authorized a premium pay for them, and council has been unified and they have been supportive in our efforts to prepare for what it is that might be happening here in the next couple of weeks. So really, really grateful for that. They're really speaking, I think, with one clear voice, not in our city, not in our home, and we want to be committed to being prepared to ensure safety for everybody. For the day of, there's a lot of planning that involves a lot of different entities throughout the city of Portland. We're linking arms with and connected with Portland Bureau of Emergency Management, with PBOT, with the Fire Bureau, and many others. And so I'm encouraged that we have strong partnerships and that they have become, over the summer in particular, really strengthened. And there've been, you should know, there's meetings, really literally upon meetings that are occurring, all in anticipation for the election, to ensure that we're ready as a city for whatever it is that might come our way. We have strong relationships with, as you said, the district attorney's office, and not only the district attorney's office, but also the United States attorney, Natalie Wright. She's been very explicit about her willingness to evaluate cases on the basis of a potential federal prosecution. And in the time since 2020, both here and around the country, I think that the arrest and the successful prosecution of people for a whole host of crimes related to protest, demonstration, riots, damage, assaults, arsons, etc., has been, we think, positive in the sense that it's sent a strong message. So, and we're hearing clearly from community, and we're hearing from businesses, and we're hearing from all the various government entities that are a part of this, that they want safety, and they want they want safety for all, and they want crimes. They want people arrested for crimes. They want laws enforced. So we're not unclear about that. Now, the last thing I'll say prior to turn it over to the chief is, as you've watched over the course of the summer, the incidents that happened, for example, at the library, the chief, if you remember, the chief pulled together a press conference at about 11 o'clock at night with the DA and with the mayor and others, the president of Portland State University, to provide information to people about what was happening and to show a sign of solidarity and support. And that our commitment was to ensure that laws were enforced and people were arrested and held accountable for criminal conduct. Now, after that, you might remember that a number of our police cars were arsoned out of our training division. And when that happened, the chief, again, called a press conference, but this time with the DA, the mayor, the United States attorney, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and sent, very clear message that we are all in opposition to criminal behavior, that we're all equally committed to ensuring people are held accountable, and we're unified in our approach to addressing crimes that are occurring. So there's been a lot that's happening. There's in terms of like the lead up and the preparation, and I know that the chief has participated with Revitalize Portland. You've all heard him talk about a whole host of things related to safety, homelessness, staffing levels, etc. I know he sends his regrets. He's actually in Boston at the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference and meeting with other chiefs and talking actually about this very topic. But asked that Chief Dobson and I be here to share this information with you. So we want to, the goal and objective for us is to increase confidence, and for you to know that we are doing everything behind the scenes and publicly that we can. Our communications unit, Mike Benner, and other communications.
Tobias repeated the Asian Health Center thing. Part of his speech, he was like, hey, if you don't like getting all those phone calls and door knocks,
There we go. The chief has been committed to this work and ensuring that we are ready come November. So that's a bit of a high level. That's an overview. I'm very grateful to Chief Dobson and many others that are part of Portland Police Bureau and his team. They are, have distinguished themselves and are experts in this field and in this area, especially crowd management. And so the chief, I think, is also able to be here with us to talk a little bit about the plans and what we can all expect come November the 5th. Chief?
Thanks. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So we have been working regularly with all of our local and state partners in this preparation work. We've also been with the FBI and talking to them as well to ensure that we're not missing anything. And so part of the plan is to ensure that the public has the information that we need so that we can be able to share in real time concerns and issues that we might be facing, so that there are no surprises on the public side. As Robert said, at this point, we have no intelligence or no information of any concern at this point, but we're watching carefully, and we'll continue watching through day of into the evening to make sure that there isn't anything, and we'll be able to make sure that we can respond and let the businesses as well as the community know what's going on. As for training, we've got our team back up and running, and we've been focused on training them to ensure that we have a response, much like we saw back in June of 2021. We're going to be very focused on those individuals who are doing criminal acts and removing those individuals from the group, so that the group, those that are peacefully and lawfully protesting, can continue to do so. But those that are breaking things or that are, again, committing crime will be removed and held accountable for those things. Eric, I know you sent me some other items you wanted me to touch on. Do you want me to touch on those now, or how do you want me to do that?
I'd say, yeah, just cover the high points. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions. So if there's anything else you want to make sure you cover, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Kind of pivoting from there to talk about kind of some general things. House Bill 4002 had to do with deflection, and there was questions about that. We've seen about 164 people now that we've recriminalized PCS. We've had contact with at least 164 people, and of that, we've been able to deflect about 38 of those individuals and that have wanted and have met the criteria to be able to go to deflection. So that has been a positive for us. With the camping ordinance, we continue to work with the city. It's been largely, in our eyes, a success in that it is pretty rare that we actually have to be called to deal with the camping ordinance and actually write a citation for that. We have worked with the county, and they are willing to take those individuals and book them. And we've had actually very few of those people that have actually needed to actually get a citation or be booked on that piece. We continue to work on graffiti and the vandalism piece. We've had a couple of really successful turns at that, some high profile cases that we've been able to put out in the media to ensure that folks understand that we are holding people accountable for that, and have been very successful. Unfortunately, we've had a retirement in our neighborhood response team that was doing a good chunk of that with the two that we have that currently are working that almost full time. So we have had a little bit of dip in our ability to work on that. Overall crime rates, the good news is crime rates are decreasing. We've seen kind of an overall 20%, roughly 20% decrease in most crimes. There are some that are staying steady. Our number of shootings and homicides continue to stay there at about the same rate. However, most other crimes have been decreasing, and our focus on street crimes as well as Retail theft, I think, has been a large piece of that, and where we're focusing on going after those folks. Response times, again, continue to be far higher than we want to, but the fact that we're seeing some decrease in crime rates is pretty substantial. We're also looking at, for public reporting of crime, changing what we're using there so that we can make it easier and more readily available for the public to be able to report some of that crime. For staffing, I think we're at 8. It changes by day, but I think, Robert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're about 804 right now. I think if you have been listening to the news, the boss, the chief, has stepped out and is really pushing for, we are understaffed. And he is publicly making it very known that in the next section of budget for next year, we're going to ask for 1,037, recognizing that we might not be able to meet that need, but the having those positions and shooting for that goal is something that we need to be able to ensure that we've got the budget to be able to continue to push for street crimes, going after retail theft, as well as some of our SVO missions, which focus on stolen vehicles. What we've seen is that those that are stealing vehicles also are interrelated with some of our other stuff. And so as we go after one type of crime, it actually has effects on other types of crime that help us. With that, morale is pretty good at the moment. You know, we're past kind of that dark place of 2020, 2021. And it continues to be pretty steady where we're at right now. Like I said, the ultimate goal is that the boss, the chief, wants us to get to about 1,200 officers over the next 3 to 5 years, which would put right size us for the size of city that we're at. But that's going to be a challenge with the city budget as it is, and the challenges that we have with that. Again, working with Robert touched on working with other parts of the government. In this case, especially as we go into the election, we've been very focused on ensuring that all of the bureaus within the city are working together. And so we have a unified command and have a bunch of different groups working together. So our emergency management, PBOT, Parks Bureau are also involved in that as well. So I think at this point, I can open it up, I guess, for questions. Oh, Eric says, put them in the chat or raise your hand.
You know, Chief Dobbs, I'll just go ahead and chime in here if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of you coming to a lot of our meetings, which I really do appreciate. So thank you. A couple of questions I have. One is about the election and some of the problems that may be happening. I know you said, and Robert said as well, you don't have anything on your radar now. What could business owners and business managers could expect if you do receive information regarding something that's going to come up?
So as I said, we will be definitely, we're going to be very proactive at the messaging piece to ensure that folks understand what's coming or what we understand to have happen. We know that these things can pop up on a regular basis. We've been very careful about watching over the last 6 months how events have been playing out in Portland. The problem groups that we typically see have been having a hard time having influence in these groups. And so we feel like we're in a pretty good position here. Plus, looking at it, the public in general is tired of the problems that we saw in 2020, the breakage and some of those issues. And so I think for some of our groups that are trying to get traction and cause trouble, they're just not being able to, because the general public and the folks that are out there actually doing demonstrations legally and lawfully are just saying, no, we're not going to let that happen, which is a positive for us that they're self-policing themselves. But in the event that we get information that's going to occur, we're going to be pushing out that information as best we can to ensure that everybody is prepared and ready for that.
All right, thank you. You know, I'll just go ahead and say my second question, because this came up a lot in our RPC. We did a lot of interviews of the candidates for city council. One of the questions we had was regarding their support for a budget for a larger police force. And I just happened to kind of look at some of the numbers that that I've investigated and researched, that 1,037 still is well below what a city the size of Portland should have. You mentioned that, but there, for the people on this phone call and at this meeting, what could we do to help get that maybe a bigger number, a bigger budget for that staffing issue?
So the chief realizes that it's going to have to be a stepped process. We can't just ask for 1,200 people, knowing that we'll not be able to fill that for several years as we go into the process of trying to hire. There are some bottlenecks internally for us as well that make that difficult. I think the fact that everyone is here, and I've said it in other public meetings as well, the more your voice is heard from our elected officials, the more they understand the priorities that they should be focused on. And I think that's really where it helps. We've seen a huge change in pivot, even at the county level, where your voices have been heard. And suddenly now we're talking about a sobering center where that wasn't on the table before. And that wouldn't have happened had the voices, the public and the people not shared those voices. And so I think that's critical for you guys to be sharing and talking about that.
All right.
So there will be hard decisions to make in the budget. If there's not enough money, then how does that happen? And it's important that folks inform those that are elected of what is the priority for them.
Yeah, well, we've got to make it a priority. So thanks a lot for that answers. I'll bow out now, and Eric, you can pick whomever goes next.
No, Ken Thrasher, you were up next, and then I'll go to Carly's message in the chat, then Tom. Ped.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Chief Dotson. I just want to give you guys big kudo. Some of us know that last week you caught Redbeard, the person that's done over 35 thefts in various condos and other buildings throughout Portland. And thanks to the great work of Detective Oldham, Lieutenant Maxey, Detective McLeod, and our folks in putting together a process for people to follow and filing police reports and putting them in evidence.com, and then also combining that with DA reports to show the amount of dollars stolen. We've aggregated all those cases under one, and we have a great case to put this guy away for quite a while. So I really appreciate it. And anybody else that wants to get a copy of that process, we're glad to share it from NWCC. But thank you.
No, thank you. I know there was some frustration with the amount of time it was taking for us to identify that person and then actually take them into custody. Sometimes these cases take time. I know in 2020 there were some events that took place that literally took us 3 years to build the case to ensure that we had the right evidence to be able to take these folks to trial on some of the destruction that occurred, and we're able to finally do that with some of our partners. And so that's one of the challenges we face, is just the amount of time sometimes that it takes to get through these things. So thank you.
Thank you. Carly in the chat, Craig asked, why is response time still lagging and what's being done about that?
So we're very aware of the lag time. The challenge is we simply don't have the resources to be able to get to all the calls that we need to in a timely manner. The call load is still higher. If you were to look at the call load along with the population of Portland continues to grow, and our numbers have been stagnant. And so there's only so many of us that go around. We have changed some of the modeling of how we respond to certain calls. And so over the last anywhere from 7 to 10 years, you've seen as we respond to calls of threats, we bring a lot more resources with us. And so a person with a knife or a person with a gun is going to have a response that looks very different today than it did, say, 10 years ago. Whereas today we'll bring lots of different resources to bear on that to ensure that we have the most peaceful outcome as possible and mitigate any hurting someone if possible. And so by putting more resources on some of those higher priority calls, that means there are even less when other calls come in, or lower priority calls. And so that's why our time in responding to some of those calls is still lagging.
Thank you, Chief. Tom, Pat.
Yes, thanks. Hello again. So I can't really speak scientifically, but I've worked downtown since 2001. And I know what good downtown looks like, and I know what bad downtown looks like. Right now, it seems to be looking quite a bit better. And I'm really pleased about that. And I think that's a credit to a lot of people's work. However, just anecdotally, I seem to be reading about more complaints in East Portland. And I was wondering if law enforcement has seen an uptick in complaints or reports in East Portland. Maybe some of the folks down here have been moved out there. I'm not sure what's happening.
That's a great question. I think you're totally correct. What good downtown looks like, it took us a while to get back to that after a pandemic, and all of the services that we had to help clean up downtown, as well as deal with some of the homeless issues, basically stopped and went to a standstill. And so for a good couple of years, nothing was happening. And it took a while for that engine to get back going. And so it's been between our transportation division and our PMO and our SSCC programs, it took a while before we could actually start getting and making a dent out of it. I think what we're seeing is that the neighborhoods are becoming more awake, and what they recognize is downtown was really loud and very vocal about what they wanted to see, and now you're starting to see some of the other neighborhoods actually come awake and want to be heard as well. We're also, the trends are different out there. It's not necessarily that we're seeing things pushed out there. There are different types of crimes that are going out there, but people are now starting to vocalize about that. Robert, do you have anything you want to add on that piece? Yeah, but it's good because we want the people to be.
Great.
Other questions? Lance puts in the chat about deflection. Person chooses deflection over jail, feels very little, if any, who will check in with treatment is provided. And he's wondering why we don't make treatment mandatory when arrested. And that's a multi-jurisdictional answer, but I'll give it to you, Craig or Robert, if you want to take a shot at it.
I mean, that ultimately is the county. The county is responsible for public health, and so it falls on them. And again, I think it ultimately falls on the people. When the people change things, I mean, we all want to handle things humanely as possible and allow people and bring them along as best we can when they want to. But I believe there are times when it needs to be compelled. But the county is in charge of that, and I can't talk to them about what they're doing with this.
Brian also mentions the 250 beds, another county issue sitting unused at Inverness, and that we are not opening those beds in light of the jail hitting 90% occupancy often. And I think that's a big issue, of course, in the county elections happening right now as well. I don't know if there's anything related to the jail you want to respond to or talk about, Robert or Craig.
I think the only thing, again, that's jail and that's county, and we have no control over that. I think that what's important to know is that they have the same staffing issues that we do. And so that, I'm sure, plays into their ability to be able to open certain wings or beds. There's a capacity per correction officer that they can allow. And I know staffing has an issue there that plays into that.
And Glenn asks if there's any chance of proactively working with the groups that did most of the damage back in 2020. We've had good results with this type of action in dealing with gun violence.
So we are working on a project, a couple of different angles at a project to be able to sit down with our activist community and the folks that are involved in protesting. Again, most folks that demonstrate, about 95% of all demonstrations are peaceful and lawful and don't go into crime. The challenge is those that do veer into crime typically don't want to talk to us, but we are looking at avenues of dialogue to be able to talk to the folks that are doing it legally and lawfully so that we can have better relations with them to ensure that when those folks that show up that don't want to play nicely appear, that they can either use their influence to be able to ensure that those folks aren't melded into the normal groups, or that they work with us to be able to ensure that those folks are held accountable.
Great. Y'all keep asking questions, raise your hand or put it in the chat. I'm gonna take just a quick minute. Mark Wells, I don't believe is here, but he was, Mark runs the Downtown Clean and Safe program. They've asked us to spread an invitation for this Thursday at 11:30. They're opening up the Central City Coalition meeting for Central Business District preparations for the elections. So probably a deeper dive into some of the things that Craig and Robert mentioned earlier. So if you do have an interest in more specifics around downtown and properties, that's an in-person meeting on Thursday at 11:30, and the link is in the chat to register. And if you need any more info, I'm happy to give it to you as well. But that's an open invite from Clean and Safe, and I think you all, maybe it'll be you all there as well, Robert and Craig.
Eric, I don't want to keep raising my hand, but I could go on and on. So
go ahead, Tom.
If you need somebody to call on, just don't worry about it.
Go ahead.
Brian had a comment in the chat.
Oh yeah, so Brian asked, how can citizens help with recruiting new officers in Portland? I believe Seattle and several other cities are paying signing bonuses to attract new officers. What is the PPB game plan to increase the number of officers?
Popped up there. That's another great question. We do have a strategy on hiring folks. It largely is now social media driven. Our younger folks, that's what they live off of, unlike some of us that have gray hair here on this call. They're very plugged into their phone and their devices, and so a lot of it has gone to social media and how to reach out through those mediums to get a hold of them. I think, I think in general, anytime we disparage the police, like in 2020, where it became defund the police, that has an impact on folks that are thinking about going into law enforcement. We want folks that are empathetic, that think, that have great decision making and can relate to the community, but that are part of the community to join our ranks. And when there's a general negativity towards that type of profession, it hurts. And so I say invite anybody you can that you think will be able to be a good ambassador to the city, to want to join those ranks and push them our way. I think all of that helps.
And the one thing I would add there is, just for the group, so you're aware, recently at City Council Chief Day presented on the annual report, and obviously recruiting and retaining came up, and our personnel division has been really successful and effective at recruiting, and they would tell you that even we believe locally and nationally more successful and effective than a lot of other agencies our size. But here's the list of things that people who join PPB are saying about why. Why do you want to be a Portland police officer and serve the community? Here's the list. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's a pretty good list. Job variety, opportunity within the career, the variety of assignments. They're well aware of the city of Portland and its history and over the last handful of years, et cetera, and they want to come here because they want to make a difference. They want to serve, and they're committed to helping the community. Some of them were recruited to do the work. A lot of times the recruitments are coming through, we find through Portland Police Bureau. A lot of Police Bureau sworn and non-sworn, family members, retired, encourage family friends to come in. But they've also said they're looking for meaningful work. They appreciate the wellness program. They appreciate the good pay and benefits, and that it's a large agency where they feel like there's a lot of opportunity. So I just want to really be encouraging to everybody. We've got a lot of really incredible people that are coming on board. They want to be here. They want to be in Portland, Oregon. And so, yeah, we're very grateful for that. So any and all support, is welcome, because I know that it's going to continue to be a priority, obviously, to increase the number of folks who work in the police bureau.
Great, Tom. I'm gonna let you ask some more questions.
Sure, if you guys don't mind, and people can stop me if they want. But Chief Dobson, getting back to the camping ordinance, you mentioned, I think you said that the county is willing to book people now. Is that correct? So that's
Yes,
yeah.
that's correct.
And that wasn't the case
Yeah.
early on.
Early on, there was a concern about the numbers that we might be bringing in and that it might overwhelm their system. We've had good conversations with the county, and they agreed to test it out for 90 days and found that we're not overwhelming their system, that we're very careful about those that we address that issue with and use the camping ordinance with. Again, we don't want to lose the camping ordinance, and so we're being very judicious about how we use it. And only used in that circumstance where we start having folks that just simply aren't willing to play the game like everyone else.
Yeah, that was kind of my next question, was just what are I'm glad to hear that you're using it rarely, but what are the circumstances where it is being used?
Sure. So the SSCC will go out and make contact with camps to clean them and work through them. And when they find someone who chooses not to, move so that they can clean it, or starts to give them trouble, that's often when they will call us to come and assist them when it becomes unsafe because of that individual. And that's when we'll address it. Oftentimes we're able to address it because they either have, another criminal issue going on that they also end up going to jail for, as opposed to necessarily the camping issue. So they might have a warrant or something else that's outstanding, and that makes it where we're able to fix the problem through that method.
And maybe, I don't know if you can speak to this, but when a camp is moved or set to be moved, are police officers the first people on the scene, or is it some of the other folks that you've described?
That's a great question. It's a very layered approach. Outreach workers go out and basically pamphlet and let them know, hey, this is coming. They usually put it out there a few days in advance, and then they have cleaning crews that show up who have somebody that's designated to help, who's good at communication skills, and they go in, and then that team goes through and cleans. If they run into any kind of trouble, they use that liaison that they have out there to try to mitigate any issues, try to talk through it, see if we can work through it. And then if that fails, then they do call the police, and we come out and help them with that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jose, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So, when I was in the office, which was a very long time ago, there were specialized groups of, I would call them task force, set to tackle the problems of guns, or particularly gangs and gang members. And I know some of these programs have stopped over the years, the past few years. And with the new partner of a new DA coming in to play with Portland Police, is there any movement to bringing maybe some of these back, or just starting some new groups?
Yeah, we're already looking at a new street crimes initiative where we're the SCC, or Robert, help me here. There's too many letters and too many names that we have here. But we are looking at going after basically identifying folks that are kind of the top flyers that need the most attention, and re-energizing that program to then really focus on those that are consistently at the top of the list of folks that are committing crimes, and addressing those through strategic prosecution. Within we have been doing it. We're just kind of bolstering that program. You know, you've got the stolen vehicle missions. We've got also the retail theft that's going on, and that's fairly organized as well on our side. There is a capacity, but we are looking at how do we expand and continue to be very proactive in all the areas that we can.
Eric, can I say another word about budget and about staffing? So it's, I think, a longer conversation, maybe at another time, Tom, and with others. But one thing the chief wants to, begin to help people be clear about is, sort of the budgeting process that's gone on in the city around public safety for as long as we've been here. And the reason I mention that is, so right now we have 800. We're authorized 883. So the way the city has budgeted the 83, those open and vacant positions, that money, those for the unfilled positions, it's used to fund other programs within the police bureau. And so that's the way, I just want everybody to understand, that's the way the city has budgeted the police bureau for, say, 20 or so or longer years. So there's the chief's goal is, to be able to staff up fully. This year, as the chief has said, we're at 800. We think going into the new year, we'll be at 800. The good news about 2025 is there are no 27 pay periods. There's some in the bureau. There are certain months that the look back, the calculation for pension is higher, and so during those months, people will often retire and leave because it means more income to them over the course of their life. Well, in 25, there are no 27 pay periods. So we think we could be at 850 by the end of 2025. And so, as Craig has said, it'll have to be incremental. We're going to have to bring more people in, and we're going to have to retain more people. But I think in the coming months, where we could really use the help and the support is in understanding the intricacies of city budgeting, the choices that are being made around the dollars that are available. And we're a city of, I think, $8 to $9 billion a year. And for cities, as you said, Jose, for cities our size, we're understaffed and we're underfunded. And for people who have not been supportive of the police, they'd say, well, you are a consumer, you're the largest consumer of general fund dollars. And they many times in the past, and this is the argument that's prevailed, you don't need more. In fact, during 2020, there was actually positions that were cut. So one thing that happened here recently was Ken came in, Thrasher and Suzanne, and talked to us about the Northwest Community Conservancy, and really went into great detail about what's been happening, but also about pulling together the nonprofit, and there's funding source, and then there's this action plan, and then there's these partnerships. So as a group, you are all so well versed in understanding the connection between budget, and staffing and operations. And I know going forward that the chief is going to would like to have, I'm sure, a longer conversation so that we can talk more. And I'm sure it would involve conversations, say, with the sheriff, certainly will involve conversations with Nathan, but he wants to be a part of working with everybody here and everybody in the community to strengthen the safety net overall for our city moving forward. We're on a great trajectory. We've got a ways to go, but I know he'll want and need your help and support in that effort. And I think it's really going to be diving into the weeds, getting into the granularity, understanding the budget process, and then being willing to advocate, because we believe, I think there's a strong sense among the group that increasing staffing translates into increased safety and livability in programs that you all support and are in favor of, and that we're seeing work. So longer conversation for another time, but we believe really important for the overall success of the city now and in the coming years.
Yeah, Robert, thanks so much for that, because, and I'll just say this on behalf of RPC, we want to be part of that discussion. We want to be part of that, educating our members, of which we have about 10,000, to make sure that the word gets out about how the budget runs and how we can best serve our city by not only educating ourselves, but educating those around us about how to get the services that we deserve here in Portland. And so expect us to be absolutely involved with that. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to all be focused on execution and performance as we go forward. We've got a couple different candidates I know on this on this call as well. Let me get back to our chat questions, but feel free to keep asking you all. Huge shout out from Brian Owendorf to Eli Arnold and the Bike Squad. I echo that. Working closely with private citizens regarding illicit drug use and dealing with tips downtown. Made several arrests to get reduction on the supply side. And the Bike Squad's been very influential in working with the county and the operators at the Behavioral Health Resource Center, where I think are seeing a really good partnership evolve there, which I echo. Thank you to the Police Bureau for your work in that. Absolutely. And then Glenn, it's a great question with the increase, if we're able to have increase in police staff, will we have the justice system resources to follow through? And I think that's this whole big picture piece that we've all had to train ourselves in, right? And I would presume as we go forward, Robert and Craig, there's engagement that's happening with the other parts of the justice system, or at least
There definitely is, and I know that you're right, that there will be and need to be more and better coordination and communication. And yeah, in order to ensure that there is support for this kind of increasing effort, definitely.
One of the things about, I think that our membership have had frustrations around is, again, it's not you all, but one part of the government starts to go in one direction, then all of a sudden, we hear that the other part is either was unaware or, isn't going to enforce, et cetera. So those are the kind of things we would like to see behind us. Margot's got a great comment about graffiti and being able to get cleaning equipment. Margot, I think there is an effort or some remainder of that still exists, but I can't place it right now. I will find out and follow up. It was the city, and I really like your suggestion of coordinating with Adopt One Block. It's actually some of the things we've been working on in the space of that governor's task force. So there have been some private money raised to support efforts like that. So it's a really good comment. And actually, you mentioned the huge number of Adopt One Block ambassadors. That's part of the conversation that we're having is, using potentially the super ambassadors, the folks that have done their own blocks for a long, long time to help with some of these bigger, more problem spots like you. I know a lot with your block.
We also need to know, since we would be feet on the street, we can take pictures of the bigger stuff and, with location information and, save somebody else the time of trying to figure it out.
Yep. That's really good point. And that's the piece we're kind of trying to coordinate on with the state folks and the county and the city folks as well. So we gotta probably circle back on graffiti at some point overall, because there's a lot that needs to be done there, and I do think it's one of those places that falls in between the cracks. One of the things I continue to push on, and we talked about it already, but is that the cost of remediation is far less than the cost of enforcement when it comes to those issues, and the number of perpetrators we're talking about is probably in less than 100 for most of the graffiti that we have and we see out there. So really good point there. Anything else on that, Robert or Craig?
I cut and pasted the email or the text of it, Eric. I'm gonna check a couple of things and then I'll email you with as much as I can get. And then if at some point you want to have Commander Hughes and a couple of members of the neighborhood response team that's Amelia and Nate have distinguished themselves. If you've been watching any of the news, you'll see that they are with some regularity making arrests that are having an impact. And so yeah, they are very knowledgeable. They're very effective at it, and I'm sure they'd love to come and talk to you and
Oh,
figure
that's
out
great.
a better partner together.
Yeah. So we'll try to set something up there, and I'll follow up with you because I'd like to come and sit down and talk to them a little bit so I better understand the process. And it's worth their time because we're going to be pitching more and more to the governor and to the county and city leadership around, again, just trying to solidify those efforts together. Also, because we're making some progress, but we sure have a long way to go, particularly when it comes to graffiti and, like directional signs, that sort of thing too.
Yeah.
Olivia Clark, candidate, endorsed RPC candidate, asked, is there a discussion on bringing back transit police run by the city bureau? Mike Reese was once the captain of the transit police.
That's a great question, and I apologize. My computer went dead.
Thank
So I
you
had to
for
go find
getting
my
back.
plug-in to go plug it back in and actually have a conversation. So we are having that conversation again. It's a prioritization type thing where we hope that as we start adding bodies this year to our staffing, that we'll be able to add back to transit as well. We recognize that, there's a whole bunch of programs that as we get up to strength, that we want to get back into and ensure that we've got resources to those. School police is another one that we would love to be able to get back into the schools and be able to reach out and have those connections with the kids as well.
That's great. And I've got one just off the fly that made me think of, and I know I've heard one or both of you maybe talk about this in the past, and we talked about the great work at the Northwest Community Conservancy. But also, how is the coordination going with the private security for services and folks around the city?
That's a great question. It can be hit and miss, based on Oregon's requirements through their DPSST, which is the body who trains both police officers and security. When you look at security, it's a pretty minimal requirement that they have to be a security officer. And so, there are some folks that do better than others. And without disparaging anyone, sometimes it's a challenge, there's some that do a lot to add extra training and ensure that their folks, get the training for emotional intelligence and how to de-escalate and that kind of stuff. And then there are others that don't. And so it's kind of hit and miss depending on who you have, but usually, the ones that do invest in their folks, we have a pretty good relationship with.
That's great. That's great. I know that's been an ongoing dialogue, and we can have you come to these meetings for accountability purposes. Not always the case with those others. Other questions? Glenn's got a question about some talk about giving jail time to those caught doing graffiti. Do you think this is an effective way of dealing with the issue?
So those that we're focused on are the worst of the worst. Again, prioritization of things. And so those folks that we're going after have done thousands of dollars of damage, and absolutely they're going to jail. That's our job. Where it goes from there and whether or not they're held accountable, whether the judge hands down a decent sentence. Again, we have no control over that, but we are making sure that all of the cases are brought against them and they face, the strictest of felony charges when it comes to that vandalism. And we've been fairly successful in some of those. Again, some we're still waiting for just because of the other parts of the system aren't moving as quickly as we are.
Great. We probably have time for maybe one or two more questions if folks have it, or if anybody wants to make a comment or circle back to something we covered.
Eric, I just wanted to throw this in here and take it from me. I'm not a DDA anymore, Deputy District Attorney, but kind of adding to what Chief Dobson just said, from my experience, a lot of the worst of the graffiti people, that wasn't their first time in front of the court. A lot of them might have convictions, and so that jail time question could be answered because there are some minimum jail terms that they have to serve if they get to a particular point of the level of the crime, or that they have a kind of a lengthy criminal history. So I know that I think was just last week or so, where there was a lot of discussion about jail term for graffiti people, and a lot of people were like, well, it's just graffiti, why are you putting someone in jail? And there's a lot more factors at play when a conviction is made for graffiti, especially someone who's been doing it for years and has tagged hundreds of buildings and has caused tens of thousands of dollars of damage. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And if I got that wrong, Chief, please let me know, but I think I'm on the right side of that.
You're doing good. You remember well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? We really, really appreciate you all taking the time to be with us today, and just as we look at all across the various parts of our justice system, just appreciate your cooperation, openness, and being able to dig into this with us. Obviously, clearly our members have a real vested interest, and are also pretty smart about these issues. And so it's good for us to be able to engage in this way.
Eric, I think Thursday there'll be a lot of folks at the meeting that you talked about, and I know that there'll be representatives from the city, there'll be representatives from the state, from the Fed, the county, and Mark Wells and I know Steve are working up kind of the run of show, and it's designed to share the same type of information we're talking about today, but be an opportunity to hear from folks representing all these different agencies and organizations, and have a conversation and make connections. So we'll be there, and look forward to seeing any of you there that can attend, and looking forward to, we're going to continue every day until obviously the election itself, and with in every effort, in every way that we can, to be ready for what it is that's coming. And I believe we as Portlanders stand in solidarity, to ensure safety and livability, and in this case, holding people accountable who engage in criminal conduct.
Well said. Well said. And I'm just think back to the PSU incidents earlier this year, and Robert, thank you for your clear engagement. One of the things I think we all run into is this kind of fog of information that's flying around, and what's real and what's not. And at that moment, you helped reassure me that things were in hand, and also that we were having greater cooperation among the various levels of government and officials. That's important. So well, this was really great. I really appreciate you all joining us today. Shifting gears real fast on the election, do check out our website, revitalizeportland.com, and our social media channels. We'll continue to talk about and push our endorsed candidates, several of whom, again, who are here today. We know this election is absolutely critical. Don't forget about the county election as well. If you're in District 1 or District 2 of Multnomah County, again, we've endorsed Vadim Mazursky and Sam Adams, and encourage you to get out and support them. The other point I'll make about elections, and candidates can echo this, we have this opportunity to live in Portland. I mean, even a $5 or $20 small donation really does go a long way for the candidates as they're trying to hit their goals for the small dollar election. So don't feel like you've got to break the bank when you make donations. Even those smaller ones do count, and you can access our candidates again through our website. and find their connections there. So there's my pitch for all of our candidates who are having to pay for and slog through knocking doors and sending mail right now, as well. If you're a NAOP member, I'll just flag that our coalition members, NAOP, are having a breakfast this Thursday, the 24th, at the Maloma Athletic Club. They call it a Vision for Portland from Sam Adams, Renee Gonzalez, and Nathan Vasquez. So encourage you to attend that. If you haven't signed up for it, I know they have some space remaining. And then just the last thing, I'll do the plug for our podcast, which continues to go strong, the Revive and Thrive podcast that our board member Michael Hieronymus has been hosting. We're about halfway through the mayoral candidates, and you can find that podcast on all your favorite podcast apps. So on Apple or Spotify, just look up Revive and Thrive. I think the latest one we posted was Keith Wilson's interview, and then the previous one to that was Mingus Maps, and we'll be posting Renee Gonzalez and Carbon Rubio here shortly. Those have been recorded. They just have to be produced, and then we'll put them out there. So we're 4 minutes early, which makes me happy. Is there any other things we need to cover? If not, I don't see anything. I'm going to let everybody go just a slight bit early, but once again, join me in thanking Robert and Craig and Chief Day, and we will see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.